We are at the midpoint of the season, and the Flames have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and find themselves in a wild card race.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me here today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. Today, we are kind of doing a mid-season checkup progress report, if you will. And of course, the latest news out of Calgary in terms of Jacob Markstrom's injury and the UFA saga continues. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you're getting your podcasts and of course on YouTube as well. We are free 99 across the board. So find us wherever you listen to your shows and make sure you're subscribed. Earlier today, on Tuesday, it was announced that Jacob Markstrom is now listed as day today with a lower body injury. This is Markstrom's, I believe, technically third time out, second time on IR. I believe he's on the IR with an injury. Earlier this season, he had an illness, and then he of course had his broken finger, and now this kind of lower body injury. There is no timetable. He did leave practice yesterday, Monday afternoon, and everyone was kind of speculating that this was trade related, and it turned out to just be maintenance. I obviously hope he feels better. That is the number one priority here, right? And with his absence, you do have the opportunity to see Dustin Wolf get a start for it too. Of course, Dustin Wolf does have an .893 save percentage in the few games he has appeared in this season. Hasn't been off to a great start in his NHL career, unfortunately. I think that would be a lot different if he was consistently seeing reps in the NHL and at the NHL level so he can properly adjust. And that's, again, we've talked about it ad nauseum before, and we'll talk about it again. He's backing up Dan Vladar right now, who has an .883 save percentage. This is really frustrating because the Flames have made up a decent amount of ground. They started the season 2-7. So things could have gone a lot worse than where they're at right now. And I feel like there's got to be some sort of praise and acknowledgement for that, because it's very easy to just kind of throw the season to the wayside after that's your start. And thankfully they were able to get it together. And Jacob Markstrom has been a very large component in this team's success. How many times in post-game interviews has Ryan Huska said, Markey stole this one for us? Or if it's not him, it's some of the players. And now this is a slippery slope. I don't fault anyone in this situation because sometimes the cards just fall the way that they do and things don't always end up in your favor. And right now, this is another wave of adversity for the Flames. They obviously cannot afford to lose any more ground than they have already. They are currently 3 points out of a wild card spot, which is phenomenal considering where this team was, say, a month ago. And it should be, again, commended. Their efforts have been tremendous, but I am not overly confident at the start of this homestand right now. I think the goaltending is shaky, obviously, with Wolf and Vladar. Vladar is very inconsistent, and it's not just his save percentage that speaks to him as a goaltender. He does have some of the worst goal saved above expected numbers and things like that. But at the same time, he does make some incredible saves that you're like, why can't you do that all the time? And Wolf, Who knows how much time he'll see. There's no way Vladar starts all 6 home games in this homestand, but I also don't think Jacob Markstrom's going to be out that entire time. So we're just going to have to wait and see there, because this is an opportunity for Vladar to really redeem himself. There are a handful of teams that could really benefit from a goaltender, and New Jersey Devils being one of them, and Carolina Hurricanes. And there's plenty of teams that, if he does go on a little heater here, okay, maybe that's enough to, their long-term memory may be impacted. I really do think that they need to give Wolf time to get settled. Trade Vladar, let Wolf get in those starts. This is really a win-win for both goaltenders if things go well. Again, I don't think Jacob Markstrom is going to be out this entire homestand. I do think that we will see him again, and whether he's fully ready to come back or not, I do hope that he is, able to fully rest up and heal before coming back, because obviously you want to lessen the risk of a re-injury occurring. Coming up in their homestand, they have Arizona, Toronto, the Oilers, St. Louis, Columbus, and Chicago. If this team, those last 2 games, will be infuriated. Those are 2 games that you cannot lose. They just lost to Chicago, and they can't do it again, because that will be 5 games in a row where they've lost to Chicago, and that is unacceptable. I would say that this is a pretty easy time for the Flames right now. Not because they have like an easy schedule by any means, because they're home and they can rest and reset. They're not flying, they're not dealing with jet lag. They're resting at home. They're able to get in, the most out of their time and make the most out of every game day. And I think that's super important here. I do hope that things continue to trend in a positive direction. The Flames have been playing pretty well. Do I think that this is going to extend into an incredible win streak? No, I don't. But I want to see good effort 100% every night. And that's going to come from these guys staying on the pace that they've been playing at. And we're going to talk more about the team leaders in scoring and goaltending coming up right after this. And before we do that, I am going to talk to you about one of my favorite sponsors that I will be using to make sure I am at the Flames game in Boston in just a couple weeks. Game Time is the perfect app to use for any sports fan who is looking to get in on any last-minute action for sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, you name it. Game Time is there for you. View from your seat option, all-in pricing, and just great last-minute deals that you can get up to an hour after the event starts. So if you're spontaneous or running late, Game Time is the perfect place to buy your tickets. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. That is code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first Game Time purchase. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, make sure you are following me on X at Jess Belmosto. One thing that people were hypercritical about at the start of the season was the lack of offense. The Flames truly struggled to get the season going. They won the first game, and then it was just kind of those 6 straight losses. And it wasn't a very fun time. And I do have to commend anyone who really thought that Dustin Wolf would be a full-time NHLer by now, and Jacob Markstrom would be the backup by American Thanksgiving. I think about that. That is my Roman Empire. I think about that all the time. Again, this season has been unpredictable. The team is doing their best impression of the Calgary Flames in creating the most chaotic scenarios for themselves. I absolutely did not have Blake Coleman leading the scoring with 37 points on January 16th, 2024. He has been playing phenomenally. It's quite honestly unbelievable that he's playing at this level, just because we didn't see this in his first 2 years in Calgary. Now, I'm going to be delusional and say maybe Huberdeau also needs like 2 years to get settled and we'll see an uptick in production. Do I think that that's the case? No, I don't with Huberdeau, but it is so fantastic to see Blake Coleman just being part of one of the best lines in hockey with Backlund and Mangiapane. I think that line is going. It proves to be a real threat every time they're out on the ice, whether it's scoring shorthanded goals, scoring 20 seconds into the game, or just being strong forecheckers. That's, I mean, that is what that line is. They're really good, and I enjoy watching them. Same with Nazem Kadri, Connor Zary, and Martin Pospisil. Nazem Kadri has 34 points after a slow start to the season. I mean, I wouldn't say slow is the right. You do have to remember the lines did not look like what they look like now back in October. And he, again, got settled in, brushed off the off-season dust, and has been tearing it up with the kid line. They're calling it the kid line. He is old enough to be these kids, like maybe dad? Actually, probably not. But regardless, he is a lot older than the kids, and it's great to see him playing like this. There was a lot of criticism. I remember 3 games into the season where people were saying this contract is so bad. He has only X amount of points. How can they afford to do this? And mind you, I don't even think that they had played 5 games and people were already writing the season off. And to me, that's doing this team a disservice. And while they have struggled, they have pulled themselves up by the bootstraps and gotten it together. You get to see guys like Yegor Sharangovich have the year that he is having. He has found his footing in Calgary, and it has been unbelievable to watch. He does have 30 points and just scored a hat trick the other night on the road. I do not think any of us expected this from Yegor. I think that a lot of people were rightfully disappointed by the return in the Toffoli trade or just trading Toffoli in general. But with this bounce back year he's having, he is not only helping himself, he's helping his line mates really boost their scoring too in terms of points with Huberdeau and obviously Elias Lindholm. It's great to see, and I appreciate that he's not afraid to shoot the puck and can usually count on him when a game goes to a shootout. And I'm glad that he's proving everyone wrong. It's nice to see. And I really like what we are seeing across the board offensively. I think that, you are getting scoring from everyone. Maybe not that fourth line as often as you would like, but we have seen AJ Greer find the back of the net a few times. We're still waiting for Dylan Dubé to find something there, and I do like how things are going. I do. I'm not going to deny that. And I love how things are looking numbers wise on the blue line. You have Hanifin with 23 points, who it does sometimes forget that he is a defenseman. You have Rasmus Andersson with 24, who has absolutely stumbled this season. Again, positioning wise, there have been nights where really both Hanifin and Andersson kind of get walked. And it is incredibly frustrating to watch because they're typically up for defensemen. And I don't enjoy watching defensive breakdowns and having one of them stand right next to the crease and watch a puck go in. It's kind of disheartening. And then, of course, you have Mackenzie Weegar with 26 points. He is 5th on the team in points, I believe, and he's just looked so good. He has really solidified himself as, I would say, the Flames' top defenseman. I think he's taken over Rasmus Andersson's spot. And it's not just because of the counting stats, it's because he does play defense, and he plays it in such a way that it is it's his literal job. He's preventing the teams from scoring, but he plays it in a very well-rounded way. He's blocked a lot of shots this season too. I really think he's gotten more comfortable throwing his body on the line. Don't need to do that. Maybe we let Chris Tanev kind of stick with that. I'm impressed. I really like what we have been seeing. And to wrap it up here, Jonathan Huberdeau has 8 points in his last 8 games. something shifted in the universe on that New Year's Eve game against Philly when he had the assist, that gorgeous pass on Nick DeSimone's goal. I believe it was Nick DeSimone. It might have been Dennis Gilbert. I believe it was Dennis Gilbert. I'm sorry. It's delightful to watch. And of course, he does only have 23 points, but considering the pace he was on, we're happy. We will take what we can get. And I don't enjoy making excuses, and I find it absolutely insane to make excuses especially for someone that's making the amount of money that he's making. Something is clearly working now that wasn't prior. So let's move on and hopefully learn from the first few months of the season and see someone that's smart enough and watches film and can pay attention to details without getting distracted by someone in the audience can break that down and make more sense of it. That, unfortunately, I am a film expert. Coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show with a little update, if you want to call it that, on the pending UFA saga, because we are once again another week closer to the trade deadline. And do we even know what is going to happen? It's the halfway point of the season, Flames fans, and the team is trending towards a playoff spot. And how exciting is that after the way the season started? Regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick weather studs like Rasmus Anderson, Jacob Markstrom, Connor McDavid will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Flames fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you will get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you're getting your podcasts. We are here for you 5 days a week. And Nick will be joining me tomorrow and Thursday. Going to go through the latest updates coming out of Calgary and probably a little bit of analysis from the game against the Arizona Coyotes. Before we get into the game, of course, we still have to talk about the wonderful, the beautiful, the never-ending pending UFA saga. If you aren't up to date, Flames have several pending UFAs that they are either looking to trade or sign. We don't know really what the scenario is and who they are picking and choosing for extensions or trades. Right now, the likely candidates are Noah Hanifin extension and an Elias Lindholm trade. And late last week, Kevin Weeks put out a tweet with just an eyeball emoji with a photo of Jacob Markstrom. No one knew what that meant. And then 20 minutes later, Elvis Merlikins shares with the media that he wants a new scenario, he wants a trade. And so, of course, everyone's like, Markey to Columbus, what's going on? None of this makes sense. And you're absolutely correct. None of that makes any sense. Elliot Friedman went on Hockey Night in Canada and clarified things to give Flames fans a little bit of reassurance that Jacob Markstrom is not being shopped. He is not actively requesting a trade. Craig Conroy is not necessarily calling people, but he is listening, which means that Jacob Markstrom has given permission in some way for this to happen, because he does have that no trade clause, the no movement clause. So I'm very interested to see what happens on that end. A trade is not happening unless it is something astonishing in return. And I don't know how many teams are going to offer that kind of return when the goaltender is 33, 34 years old and still has 3 years left on his deal with a $6 million. Of course, the Flames can always retain salary, can get a third team involved if needed. And who knows? This could all be nothing. It's just an option. It is just an option. But these things get out, they get told to insiders because someone wants us to know, absolutely wants us to know. And Jacob Markstrom left practice on Monday in the middle of practice. And it turns out that it was maintenance. After those trade rumors, everyone was kind of holding their, okay, it's kind of, the math is beginning to math on why things are happening. But it turns out it was just maintenance. Ryan Huska just said, nah, he did enough out there. He did what he needed to do. And then today it's announced that he's out day to day with lower body injury. So we went a completely different direction from where we were on Friday. We hope that he is resting up and taking care of himself. But what about the pending UFAs and not guys that do have term left on their contract? Is there any truth to a Noah Hanifin extension? No one has indicated that they are closer to anything, that they are far apart. Like, there hasn't been any update on a deal or negotiations or anything. They are in this homestand now for a while, like 2 weeks. And I do wonder if talks will kick up again, if things are going to get done, because they are home for a while. No one's bouncing around. And I understand things can happen through Zoom and all that stuff, but something about it, optics-wise, looks really good for it to be done at home. Signed, sealed, delivered, Noah Hanifin, 7 years. $6.25 $6.5 million. I don't know. We'll see. Should not be making more than Mackenzie Weegar, but Elias Lindholm, speaking of players that want a significant raise, Elias Lindholm, things are still quiet on that front. We have no idea what's going on there. I'm still wondering if Winnipeg is going to be a good landing spot for him. It feels like any team that is going to be contending will be buying, and of course, and they will be shopping the Flames. I think that the Flames are just kind of that hot spot because they have players that are good. They have good players that need new homes. And Elias Lindholm is a very good player that could benefit a team's second line, possibly win a Stanley Cup. One thing I do want to kind of throw out there that I've thrown out a few times is you need to listen to Eric Francis. Didn't think I would ever say that, but he oftentimes acts as a mouthpiece for the team because the team does rely on him to relay information to the media. He works for Sportsnet, and he has been around the beat for a long, long time and has earned that reputation and the credibility, and it wouldn't be the first time. So I'm just saying, do yourself a favor and either find transcribed interviews on Twitter, the highlights basically of an interview he does at intermission, or read an article, or I typically do retweet the important things he posts. So you can always find that on my Twitter page as well. And I will keep you all up to date here on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast wherever you're getting your podcasts, and on YouTube as well, as we are here for you 5 days a week. Thank you for supporting the show. It is greatly appreciated. And I will see you all tomorrow. Nick will be back tomorrow. I'm sure we're going to discuss the game tonight, the upcoming homestand, and what they truly need to do to elevate their game and not lose momentum. But until then, stay safe, stay warm, stay hydrated, and put on chapstick.